Harvey, I hear y'all take vacations together on the yacht or something.
Well, we get on the boat with Magic and Cookie. Steve and Marjorie have their own boat. When I came to Chicago and I was doing negotiator, Bernie took care of me.
So, you know how we often assume that all the big shots in showbiz are tight buddies, given their wealth and shared professional paths? Well, it turns out that Samuel L. Jackson and Steve Harvey might be breaking that stereotype. Now, you'd think with their success and the fact that they're both in the limelight, they'd be best buds, right? Not so fast. Rumor has it that Samuel and Steve aren't exactly exchanging friendship bracelets. And it's not just about Steve's mustache or Samuel's comedic vibe. It seems like there's more to this apparent rift, and whispers in the grapevine suggest that Samuel L. Jackson might be gearing up to spill some unsettling details about Steve Harvey's journey to stardom. Now, we all know Samuel can be a funny guy, but this time it looks like he's dead serious. The scuttlebutt implies that there might be some skeletons lurking in Steve's closet that only the insiders are privy to. And you know Steve Harvey, he doesn't take kindly to people throwing shade his way. If Samuel is indeed gearing up to expose some truths, it might just set off a celebrity feud of epic proportions. The burning question on everyone's mind is, what exactly does Steve Harvey have tucked away in that closet that's pushing Samuel L. Jackson to the brink of calling him out? Stay tuned, because it looks like there might be some spicy Hollywood drama about to unfold. And these two might be on the verge of a showdown that nobody saw coming. So, we all know Steve Harvey has become a household name thanks to his killer comedy and no-nonsense talk, whether it's on his radio show or his daytime talk show. But here's the twist. Not everyone is on the Steve Harvey fan train, and guess who's not buying into the hype? None other than our guy Samuel L. Jackson. Now, usually you'd expect a camaraderie among black celebrities in the entertainment industry. You've got your classic friendships like Samuel Jackson and the late Bernie Mack, or Steve Harvey and Martin Lawrence. But hold up, because the Harvey-Jackson dynamic is a whole different ballgame. It's like one of those situations where one person just doesn't vibe with the other, and the other is a bit wary of the first. Complicated, right? But here's the kicker. The deets of their beef go way beyond what you might have heard on the grapevine. For starters, it seems like Samuel L. Jackson isn't entirely buying into the Steve Harvey charm, whether it's the professional persona or the real-life dude. Now, we've seen hints of Jackson's feelings over the years, but things hit a whole new level recently when he spilled the tea about his encounter with Harvey on the way to the ocean. Picture this. A couple of years back, snaps surfaced online of Jackson and his wife chilling with Harvey and his wife at some vacation spot. Now, back then, with limited info about their relationship, everyone assumed these guys were tight buddies. Headlines even screamed, "Life on the Ocean Rave, pals Steve Harvey, Samuel L. Jackson, and Magic Johnson enjoy July 4th on luxury yacht with their wives." Sounds like a pretty glamorous friendship, right? Fast forward to today, and Samuel decided it was time to set the record straight. Turns out those ocean rendezvous weren't exactly planned. According to Jackson, he and his wife were just on their way to their chosen vacation spot of the year when they accidentally bumped into Harvey and his missus. And let me tell you, judging by Jackson's expression as he spilled the beans, he wanted the world to know that this meeting with Steve wasn't some carefully orchestrated Hollywood rendezvous. It was pure, unadulterated accident.
Harvey, I hear y'all take vacations together on the yacht or something.
Well, we get on the boat with Magic and Cookie. Steve and Marjorie have their own boat.
Now, this brings up the question of why Jackson may not be Steve's biggest fan. Turns out, Samuel L. Jackson's not-so-warm feelings towards Steve Harvey might have a lot to do with a certain someone, Bernie Mack. And guess who wasn't Bernie's biggest cheerleader? Yep, you guessed it, Steve Harvey. Here's the lowdown. Back in the day, when they were part of the same comedy group, Harvey apparently had a one-track mind, getting Bernie Mac out of his way. Now, that's pretty messed up, considering they were supposed to be a team of professionals chasing success together. But according to the grapevine, Harvey had a reputation for being all about himself right from the get-go. And it goes way back. Let's rewind to the early 2000s. If you were tuned in back then, you might remember the legendary Original Kings of Comedy show. But if you missed it, what you know about Steve Harvey's journey is just scratching the surface. Picture this. Harvey, along with 3 other comedy heavyweights, became legends with their comedy tour called the Original Kings of Comedy. The dream team included D.L. Hewley, Cedric the Entertainer, and the man of the hour, Bernie Mac.
The most successful comedy tour ever at that point?
Yes, it was at that point.
This wasn't just any comedy tour. It raked in big bucks and left a lasting impact on the comedy scene. Now here's where the plot thickens. Rumor has it that while they were making people laugh on stage, behind the scenes, Harvey wasn't exactly playing nice. The tension reportedly centered around Harvey's efforts to shine brighter by dimming Bernie Mac's spotlight. So here's the deal. Harvey, with his smooth moves and aggressive audience banter, was considered the suavest performer in the original Kings of Comedy. But then you had Bernie Mac, whose style was like a comedic roller coaster, diving into intense jokes that touched on some real-life stuff. Now, rumor has it that Harvey might have caught a serious case of envy over Bernie's unique style, and what started as a minor issue snowballed into a full-blown feud. Also, Cedric the Entertainer, another OG from the tour, spilled the beans, and now the internet's buzzing with this comedy beef. Turns out those long-standing rumors about Harvey and Bernie Mac not exactly being BFFs during the Kings of Comedy tour might have some truth to them. Cedric recently spilled the tea on Shannon Sharpe's podcast, Club Shay Shay. According to Cedric, the feud between Harvey and Bernie wasn't just some backstage gossip. It was real and had its consequences. It even prevented the Kings of Comedy crew from hitting the road for another epic tour. Imagine the laughs we missed out on. But wait, it gets juicier. Back in 2003, Bernie Mac spilled some tea of his own in an interview with GQ magazine, claiming that Harvey was jealous and tried to mess with his movie roles. Steve, not one to stay quiet, addressed these claims in a 2010 interview, expressing how hurt he was by Bernie's words. But fans weren't entirely buying Steve's side of the story. So, given Samuel L. Jackson and Bernie Mac's tight-knit friendship, it's becoming clear why Jackson might not be sending Steve Harvey a Christmas card. These guys weren't just pals, they were practically siblings in the industry. You know, the kind of friendship that's so deep everyone thought of them as family.
I knew he was having some health issues, and I was really concerned about him, but he would look at me every day and say, "I'm good, let's go, let's hit it." And we would hit it. And it was a joy to work on that movie with Bernie.
They even teamed up on the big screen in the movie Soul Men. Now, while you might remember them as bandmates on a wild road trip to honor their lead singer, what you might not know is just how close Samuel Jackson and Bernie Mac truly were. Jackson has been opening up about Mac's life ever since his passing, shedding light on their deep connection. In Soul Men, Jackson and Mac played characters who used to be in a band together, embarking on a crazy cross-country journey to pay tribute to their late lead singer. Tragically, Bernie Mac fell ill and passed away from pneumonia in August after they wrapped up filming. To add a surreal twist to it all, Jackson revealed that Mac never got to see the final cut of the movie. Now that's a whole new level of bittersweet. Jackson, star of The Hitman's Bodyguard, spoke fondly of Mac, labeling him a friend. He even spilled the beans that the Ocean's 11 co-stars would crack some jokes at Jackson's golf tournament in Bermuda. But outside of their time on the Soul Men set, Jackson admitted that he didn't get to spend much time with Mac while he was alive. The guy was booked solid with his show, The Bernie Mac Show, a Fox comedy series that had everyone in stitches from 2001 to 2006. "We used to talk about blowing up and being famous and doing all this stuff and all of that," said Jackson. "Then when he got famous, he was here in LA, and I never saw him because he was too busy doing his TV show every day. I didn't go by and bother him, but I would run into him at functions and we got to get together. That was who he was, and I appreciate that about him. And I love the fact that when I came to Chicago and I was doing Negotiator, Bernie took care of me." So, remember the ending of Soul Men with that heartfelt dedication to Bernie Mac and Isaac Hayes, two genuine soul men? Well, guess whose brilliant idea that was? Yep, you got it. Samuel L. Jackson. Now, understanding the depth of Jackson's connection with Mac makes it crystal clear why he might not be thrilled about the Steve Harvey comparisons. And if you take a closer look at their life journeys, you might just see it too. Bernie Mac was no ordinary comedian. He's like the captain of the Pioneers Club in the comedy world. Known for his iconic TV series, The Bernie Mac Show and the legendary Kings of Comedy tour, later turned into a film directed by none other than Spike Lee, this Chicago comedian was a titan among his peers. Sure, today it looks like Bernie had a smooth ride to becoming an icon, but the reality was quite the opposite.
When I think of in terms of big, you know, it really wasn't a doubt. I knew I would do way.
Life threw some serious curveballs Bernie's way from the get-go. Losing his mother at a young age forced him into a tough spot, juggling multiple odd jobs to make ends meet. It wasn't exactly a walk in the park for him. But you know what Bernie realized along the way? That humor can be your best companion in this crazy journey called life. So, he decided to put all his focus into stand-up comedy, determined to spread laughter and entertain people. And that's the thing about great power, as they say. It comes with great responsibilities. Bernie Mac's legacy goes beyond the laughter he brought to our screens. It's a testament to resilience, turning hardships into humor, and leaving an indelible mark on the comedy landscape.
I'm a comedian. I'm not a black comic. I didn't want a black show. I want a show. I make everybody laugh.
although Bernie fell in love with the idea of being a comedian when he was just 8, but he didn't dive into it as a career until later in life. When he did, he had a clear vision. "I'm a comedian. I'm not a black comic," he declared. "I didn't want a black show. I wanted a show. I wanted to make everybody laugh."
I never watch what somebody else does. It does not matter. Bernie Mac got to do a thing.
So what did you think? What was your ultimate goal? What did you want to do?
To be the best.
Motivation, according to Bernie Mac, wasn't about comparing himself to others. From the early days of his comedy journey to later in life, he had 2 simple goals: be the best and stay true to himself. TV? Nah, Bernie didn't bother watching what others were doing. He had his own thing to focus on. When Oprah asked him about his ultimate goal, Bernie's response was straightforward: to be the best. Fame, jokes, they were cool, but according to Bernie, that only appealed to a specific demographic. His strength, he believed, was in making everyone laugh, no matter who they were or where they came from. In his own words, he adjusted his style depending on the space he was in. During an interview, a spectator shared how she knew Bernie was destined for greatness after one night at his show. Now, you might expect Bernie, already a successful comedian, to be patting himself on the back, but nope, Bernie Mac revealed that even though he knew he'd eventually rise to the top, it wasn't something he constantly dwelled on.
If you do well, the money will come.
That's what I know.
You know what I mean? And quit focusing on the money.
Right.
Because it's not about the money. My love for comedy is just unbelievable.
For Bernie, the end game wasn't the money. It was about getting better at what he loved. In an interview, he spilled the beans that while folks around him were all about chasing that paper, he couldn't stand the idea of money being the driving force. According to Bernie, if you're good at what you do, the money's gonna roll in sooner or later. To him, putting money on a pedestal meant there was something off.
New York and signed a contract for syndicated radio. That just gave me a little bit of money. I wasn't making what I make now. I make like 10 mil a year off radio. And that kept me at least be able to survive.
His mantra was simple: if you do well, the money will come. Money wasn't the focus. His love for comedy was what fueled him. Now, some sharp ears in the audience couldn't help but interpret this as a bit of a jab at Steve Harvey. You see, Steve has been known to highlight the importance of money quite a bit. In one interview, Steve casually dropped that he makes around $10 million a year from radio and called it a little bit of money. Yeah, you read that right, $10 million, just a tad bit according to Steve. Now, this difference in perspective on money says a lot about how these two see the world. But it's not just about the cash for Steve. His life has been a roller coaster of controversies beyond the dollar signs. Despite his public persona as the family man, the beloved comedian, the sweet actor, and the TV host, Steve Harvey's personal life has been a bit like a plot twist in one of his own shows. Yep, accusations have been flying around, ranging from him being labeled a less than stellar host to allegations of mistreating his former wife and kids for quite some time.
Steve Harvey flew Winton to Texas, and Mary saw all the bruises on her baby's back.
Now, here's a head scratcher for you. If Steve Harvey is the poster child for family values, why has he walked down the aisle 3 different times? It's got some folks raising their eyebrows. These days, there's chatter about him having a bit of a wandering eye, turning his past marriages into a hot topic. Recently, an activist named Essie Berry stepped up to spill some shocking and dark details about Steve Harvey, and it seems those words might have left a mark on Harvey's reputation. But wait, there's more. Turns out, while Steve Harvey might be the king of comedy, he's also conquered the entertainment world as an actor, producer, and writer. Harvey's climb to success wasn't always smooth sailing. Behind that smiling face is a guy who had to put in some serious hard work to get to where he is today. So, while Steve often paints the ups and downs of his journey as valuable learning experiences, it appears that the reality might be a bit more complicated. Hold on to your hats because the details of Steve's second marriage with Mary Shackelford seem to be a roller coaster.
Oh, quickly he moved forward from me to Marjorie. That was disturbing.
Steve and Mary had a son together named Winton, but their relationship hit a rocky patch early on. In 2005, the couple went through a tumultuous divorce, and Mary didn't mince words about how Steve swiftly moved on to his current wife, Marjorie Harvey. Mary, in her own words, found it disturbing how quickly Steve transitioned from their marriage to his new one.
I have just really dealt with so much bullying from Steve.
Now here's where things get really spicy. Mary, post-divorce, claimed that Steve cheated on her with Marjorie during the final days of their marriage. Steve vehemently denied the accusation, calling it baseless and incorrect. But you know what they say, actions speak louder than words. Steve did indeed tie the knot with Marjorie not long after his split from Mary, raising some eyebrows and lending credence to the cheating rumors. But wait, there's more. Mary wasn't done putting Steve on blast. She accused him not only of infidelity, but also of attacking their son. According to Mary, after being away for a few days post-divorce, she returned to find her son with what appeared to be bruises on his face. She claimed these injuries were a result of Steve's actions, prompting her to take legal action against her ex-husband. Mary decided to take her grievances to court, slapping Steve with a whopping $60 million lawsuit. The laundry list of charges included child endangerment, torture, conspiracy against rights, kidnapping, breach of contract, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. In response, Steve took Mary to court, and guess what? He managed to score an injunction against her. The court's decision came with a stipulation that Mary had to zip it. She was ordered to keep the details of the case under wraps and refrain from discussing it publicly. Now, that raised some eyebrows. Why the need for a gag order if everything was above board? To many observers, this move hinted at a possibility that Steve might have had a hand in the events Mary was talking about. Post-case, Mary told a magazine, "I didn't violate any court orders. This is about, you're not supposed to be talking to anybody about your divorce." That's what they're saying. I'm like, this is America. The whole saga left a trail of questions. Why the secrecy? Why the legal battle? It all seemed to cast a shadow on Steve Harvey's image as the relationship guru. Some fans started to wonder if maybe Steve's personal life was a bit messier than his advice columns would suggest. One fan said, "I respect Steve Harvey as a comedian and entertainer, but the relationship advice, boy suck my." Another one said, "On bro, and cheated on 2 wives and think he has creditably." Now, comedians really don't like it when someone swipes their jokes, but guess who's gotten on the wrong side of quite a few funny folks? Yep, our man Steve Harvey. In the wild world of showbiz, especially comedy, things can get messy real quick. Celebs borrowing each other's art, or in this case, straight up stealing jokes, it's like a comedy minefield. Mark Curry is making some noise, putting Steve Harvey on blast for allegedly lifting his material on a very public stage. Mark spilled the beans, claiming that Steve Harvey straight up recycled his material for jokes on his shows. And this isn't a new beef. Mark's been throwing shade about Steve lifting his jokes way back when on Harvey's NBC talk show.
The thing with Steve Harvey is that he used my material on both his platforms.
Yeah.
After I talked to him, I saw him at Def Jam, I went up and talked to him, I said, "Man, you're using my material."
There's this explosive video, and it's got Steve Harvey and Mark Curry tangled up in some serious comedy beef. Mark's claiming that Steve, who used to host Little Big Shots on NBC, swiped not 1 but 2 of his jokes. And get this, Mark says he already confronted Steve about it in the past, but the alleged joke thievery kept happening.
Curry says that you're still stealing his jokes.
Hey man, listen to me.
Yeah.
Now this, I'm getting sick of this right here.
Yeah.
Mark Curry need to grow up.
Now Mark spilled the tea to TMZ, saying that Steve jacked his Halloween bit, a personal story about growing up. But Steve wasn't having any of it. He straight up denied the accusations, saying Mark couldn't even name the supposedly stolen joke. Things got heated really quick, with Steve telling Mark to get a life and get a career. Steve went on a rant, saying he hasn't stolen a joke in 35 years and dared Mark to name the joke he's talking about. He even threw in a grow-up man for good measure. But here's the kicker. Mark wasn't just making stuff up. The comedian came armed with receipts, proving his point and turning up the heat in this comedy feud. Mark Curry took his beef with Steve Harvey to Instagram and dropped some serious receipts in a video that's now deleted. Basically, he called out Steve for allegedly stealing a bunch of jokes from him for his show. In this video, Mark compared an episode from his 90s sitcom, Hanging with Mr. Cooper, where he talked about rocking a brown box as a UPS costume for Halloween. Surprise, surprise, Steve made the exact same joke in a 2015 episode of his show.
The same Steve that went to go watch Mark Curry do his whole sitcom and then stole everything Mark Curry had.
And here's the kicker, other comedians like Cat Williams jumped in and had Mark's back. In a recent interview, Cat even called out Steve Harvey for supposedly swiping material from Mark Curry. In Cat's words, the same Steve that went to go watch Mark Curry do his whole sitcom and then stole everything Mark Curry had. Now, Steve got a sitcom where he's the principal, wearing a suit and rocking a high-top fade, making all black men think he's got the best lineup in the business. And it's a man unit, not the real deal. Let's rewind the clock to December 2008 when Steve Harvey and Cat Williams found themselves in the headlines. These two haven't exactly been best buds for over a decade, and there's a story behind it. So, Cat Williams decided to call out Steve Harvey right before a Christmas season show, and things got wild. Picture this. Jamie Foxx, who was a radio host at the time, throws shade into the mix by playing a clip of Williams dissing Steve Harvey. Cat on the phone goes on a rant saying, "I want to apologize for what's going to happen," hinting at their upcoming joint comedy gig. But here's the kicker. He drops the bomb, telling Steve that once he hits the stage, it's game over for him as the king of comedy. Steve Harvey then calls in, baffled by the whole situation. He tells Jamie and the crew, "I've always been cool with Cat," explaining that back in LA, he didn't even know who Cat Williams was. Imagine that, Steve Harvey asking, "Whoever Cat Williams is, call me." So Cat Williams didn't hold back in a recent interview, laying into Steve Harvey. Cat straight up called out Steve for supposedly being jealous of Bernie Mac, spilling the tea on their years-long beef. According to Cat, Bernie felt Steve was trying to mess with his movie roles, even attempting to snatch a role in Ocean's 11, creating major tension.
The same Negro that hated on Bernie with this same thing. I didn't want to be a movie star. No, you couldn't be a movie star.
Cat went on to claim that Steve, in an appearance on Club Shay She, tried to act all nonchalant about not wanting to be a movie star. But according to Cat, Steve was secretly trying to compete with Bernie Mac for movie roles.
This is like Steve Harvey telling people he used to be homeless. That's my story. That's not his story. Steve Harvey wasn't never homeless.
Cat also called Steve out for supposedly lying about being homeless, saying, "That's my story, that's not his story. Steve Harvey was never homeless. When Mark Curry was touring with him 25 years ago, he was making $3,000 a show in cash and doing 5 shows a week. They just tell the stories." Cat didn't stop there, diving into Steve's marital history, claiming Steve said it was his first wife who got him where he is, then switched it up with the next wife who thinks like a man. Cat questioned Steve's credibility and authenticity, especially when it comes to claiming to be the king of comedy. He even spilled that he was offered the chance to be the 4th king of comedy, but turned it down because of how Steve allegedly treated Bernie Mac. Cat said, "Because the whole time Bernie was here, you were acting like you were funnier than him. You stop it. That man was funnier than all of y'all." Cat's not holding back, calling Steve out on his claims and keeping it real about how comedy works. Well, unraveling the threads of Steve Harvey's personal life sure paints a vivid picture, doesn't it? The patterns in his behavior, especially with the legal drama and controversies, make you wonder if he might have been the source of friction in his relationship with Bernie Mac. And Samuel L. Jackson? Well, it seems he's not the only one with a less than stellar view of Steve Harvey. The entire world might be giving him the side eye. Now, we know Steve's got a knack for spinning a narrative to his advantage, so it'll be interesting to see how he plans to tap dance around this one. What are your thoughts on all this drama? Do you think Steve Harvey is getting a bad rap, or is there more to the story? Drop your comments below, and let's keep this conversation rolling.